Hello everybody, and welcome to my chat. My name is Brian Tahart, and I am the Vice Principal and a teacher at Masters Academy and College in Calgary, Alberta. Today I'm here to share a topic that is near and dear to my heart, and that is the topic of motivation. And when I'm talking about motivation, I'm not talking about just this idea of something that makes us go, but the very essence of life. What is it that helps us get up in the morning? What is it that helps kind of propel us into doing the things we do? As humans, we do a lot of really strange things. I mean, I know I do at least. But what is it that helps us do those things? So my goal for this discussion today is just to look a little bit at what are the pieces of motivation, what are some of the different elements of motivation, and then what are some of the common categories that we put motivation into? How do we classify those different motivations? Because once we begin to understand what motivates us, we suddenly become very aware of who we are as a person and are better able to manage ourselves. Because yes, we are in control of who we're becoming. God plays a role in this, and a very important piece, but God gives us free will. And so as we progress and develop as humans, we have to be very aware of what are those things that are driving us. Because if we're not in control, who is? What is? And we end up going on a path towards destruction or just kind of wandering aimlessly. So first off, let's talk about what are the core elements of motivation. And they break down into three things. First is intensity. And intensity looks at the volume by which we are motivated, just that like drive. Have you ever had that feeling where there's something you were so excited to do? Yesterday I took my daughters tobogganing. And I will tell you, I have never seen them move that fast. They had like 600 pounds of snow gear on, and they were sprinting down the street towards the toboggan hill. I, not so intense. I was in shorts and a sweater and had zero desire to go down the hill. My motivation intensity was lacking, theirs was through the roof. And I think we can all kind of share that feeling of just excitement and drive to do something. And it doesn't even have to be for something fun. There's sometimes those really deep, meaningful things that just mean so much to us. And we just give everything we can to it. The second piece is direction. What are we focusing our motivation on? What is it that we're driving towards? I mean, some mornings I wake up and I am so directed onto YouTube. I just want to sit and watch movies. Is that really the most effective use of my motivation? Probably not. There's probably a lot more important things. Now, I'm not going to lie, a good laugh challenge from time to time or some laughs, that's important. But that's not really the direction I should be focusing the majority of my motivation, the majority of that intensity that we just talked about. So where are we looking at with our motivation? And the third piece is persistence. What's driving us to continue? Because often, and I think of my daughters on the toboggan hill, they were pumped. By the fourth or fifth time they climbed the hill, that persistence started waning a bit. And there was that moment of, Dad, pull us up. And I was like, I'm in shorts. I am not pulling you up. And of course I ended up doing it because I am weak to my girls. They're adorable and I love them. But what is it that's going to keep us going? And that's a really important piece of our motivation. So then let's look at the process. So what does motivation look like? And motivation in many ways is actually a cycle. And I'll throw up a little image here that you can see as I'm talking, but it breaks down to three things. First is our motives. And this is a set of cognitive variables that are just kind of driving us. So what are these little fundamental pieces that help us be motivated? The second is our behavior. And these are the actions that we willingly do in terms of driving towards things. Usually they're goal-oriented. Our actions are to get an end purpose. My daughters were running. Why? To get to the toboggan hill. Okay, I'm sprinting towards the fridge. Why? Because I have a goal to get fed because I am hungry. And so even trick-or-treating, I mean, we wander the streets aimlessly looking for candy. What is it that's kind of like guiding that behavior? Really, we want candy. And we love candy. And also it's fun to do. And the last piece, and this is the really important piece, and this is the driving piece of our motivation, is the goals. What are those things that you are pushing towards? And what's neat is these goals are actually what drive our motivation in terms of motives and in terms of our behavior. If we set really clear goals out, it becomes a lot easier to change our behavior. You think of the classic person, you hear adults doing this all the time. I want to start going to the gym. Okay, you set that goal out, but if I just set that goal and do nothing, nothing's going to change. I'm not getting into shape, and I'm just going to keep heading to the fridge. But instead, I have to start changing my behaviors. I have to start changing the things that are like those fundamental pieces of who I am. And so as we kind of go through motivation, there's a cycle. We change our goals. This changes our motives and our behavior. As we change our motives and behavior, we then refine our goals again. And we kind of go in a cycle of betterment of ourselves if we're intentional about it. So last, but really important, I want to talk about the different types of motivations or the categories that motivation fall into. The most common one that you hear talked about is extrinsic versus intrinsic motivation. That external, I get things from other, versus that internal joy or willingness to do something. Now, I want to say this because this is important. Both are important. I mean, you think of school day to day, very few of you are coming very intrinsically motivated. Most of you are coming because, well, either your parents are making you, you want to get to university, there's a lot of different things. But I also see the intrinsic motivation in you many times. As a teacher, there's nothing better than that moment when you see a kid get something. There's this absolute happiness as they discover. In the psychology class I teach recently, we were talking about the senses, and on one of the students' faces, I saw the aha moment. It was like the light went off, and it was just, big smile, happiness, joy. And that is an intrinsic moment. Something rewarding just happened. The second category that we can put motivation into is positive versus negative. And in life, there are positive and negative kind of motivating factors that guide us daily. I don't do my homework, I fail. That's a negative motivation. I don't want to experience something bad. You know, if I don't make it home on time in the evening, my parents are ticked off and they'll probably take stuff away. If I drive too fast, the police are going to pull me over and not say, you know what, most of the time you drive really well, good job. No, they're going to write me a ticket, be pretty mad at me, and then I have to pay a fine. All negative motivation. Not necessarily bad, but they're an important thing to understand. The second part of that would be the positive motivation. It's those moments where people give you really good feedback or joyful things to kind of motivate you to do stuff. I mean, police don't really do that very often, but I actually had a time where I let someone pull in, and then suddenly a cop car, and I kid you not, pulled me over. I was terrified. And the cop came up to my window and said, "That was really nice you let that person pull in." I was flabbergasted. I was shocked. It was a really cool moment, and I actually remember that. It turns out I knew the cop, and you know, they were just trying to be funny as well. But there's something really neat when we have those positive moments of motivation where we know good things are going to come when we work hard. Now, directly tying into that is the third and kind of final category we'll talk about, and that is financial versus non-financial motivation. In life, sometimes it's all about the Benjamins, which is an American term for the money. And we do things to get money. We go to our job. Why? Maybe some of you really like working at McDonald's and you have a passion for, Big Macs. But I think some of those people working there are also hoping to get a paycheck, make some money, because money helps us do things like feed ourselves, pay rent, buy stuff that we want. And that's an important motivation. But then there's also motivators that fall in the other category that are non-financially motivated. I mean, every morning I wake up and I'm like, I have to go to my job. But I remember, I get to teach cool kids. And I say that wholeheartedly. I am joyed by the fact that I know I get to work at one of the best schools in Alberta. And our students are awesome. I mean, some of you drive me crazy sometimes, I won't lie, but I appreciate that because we have amazing people, and that's a non-financial motivation that helps me get here each day. So with that being said, I just want to remind you, motivation is something that's intentional. It's something that's directed. If you're just kind of stumbling through life and kind of just giving in to whatever motivations, you don't have a clear path. So my encouragement for you today is just to take a little bit of time and reflect. What is driving you forward? What is it that you're working towards? And most importantly, what are those goals you're setting that are going to guide that process? I thank you for your time, and thanks for listening. Bye.